And speaking of gun culture, a lot of listeners to the show, they're definitely interested in arming themselves. A lot of people have expressed the fact that, simply put, they just don't know where to start. They don't know really where to begin. So if I can ask both of you, what firearm do you recommend, or what kind of firearm maybe, for somebody who probably has, very little experience and maybe has a pretty small budget? What should people who may be unfamiliar with firearms at all look into getting for their first sort of foray into this?
In my opinion, the best firearm for someone who's new to shooting, who doesn't have a lot of experience, by far the best gun you can own is a 22 caliber rifle or pistol. Something like the Ruger 1022 that's easy to shoot, that's, depending on your state, you can get reasonable sized magazines for it. It's not the most powerful gun. It's not, a tactical AR-15 sort of thing. But if you're just starting out and you don't have a whole lot of money and you don't have any imminent threats that you're defending against, but you want to get into guns, then I would recommend a 22 caliber rifle or possibly a pistol. However, if you are on a budget, sometimes you need a gun that you can use to learn with that also has a practical application for defense. In that case, a shotgun or a full-size 9mm pistol, something with some mass to it to mitigate some of the recoil. So something like a full-size Glock or Smith & Wesson 9mm pistol or something else like that can be had in the $400 or $500 range, or a shotgun in the $200 to $400 range. I think that those would be good choices as well.
I would second that recommendation of a 10 by 22 Ruger. I used to be of the mind that shotguns were a good first gun because they're just so simple. And shotguns are just, especially like a pump action shotgun, the mechanics of it are exceptionally simple. You can look at all the parts, you can know all the parts, you can figure out all the parts really easy as to how it works. At the same time, I feel like shotguns also sometimes put people off of firearms because even just a little 12 gauge is going to give you a good recoil.
That's true.
Make a lot of noise.
Yeah, it will make a lot of noise. If you don't do it right, and I've seen people do it, thankfully not any range days I've conducted, but I've seen people at the range who are new who get a shotgun in their shoulder and they don't pocket it correctly. It throws their shoulder out of whack. It's a bad first experience, especially for somebody who's never done this before. I would say, and that includes pistols too, that a 22 pistol is going to obviously have a lot less recoil than a 9mm or anything higher. But even pistols, if you don't have good stance, and even this is something I did when I started shooting pistols, when I did offhand shooting, I broke my thumb open because I had my thumb behind the rail. And that's something really easy for somebody who's never done it before, and it sliced me good. So I would recommend a 22 rifle. 22 is cheap to do. I buy literally a bucket of bullets off the internet. It ships to me in a bucket, and it's just filled with 22s. And it's great. It's cheap. It's easy to shoot. It's pennies a shot, less than that even. I personally, I would say a 10 by 22 is good. You can get it bolt action. That's a simpler gun. I personally am a big advocate of the Mossberg 47. It's a knockoff AK that's in a 22. That gun has never let me down. I've abused it. I haven't cleaned it as much as I should. It's never failed to fire a shot for reasons of the gun. Sometimes I get bad bullets, but the gun has never failed me. I got it for $250 online, and it's just a reliable gun. Plus, it looks like an AK, so that's always great.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I got to ask, because I have a comrade who swears by this ugly brick thing, and I had someone, when I was talking to them about the SRA and Introduction to Firearms, they brought up, because they're like, oh, isn't there like this really ugly, cheap pistol? So what is your official stance on the shooting brick known as the High Point? Is that is that something that people should, maybe if they're like, look, I ain't got a lot of money and I want like some kind of pistol here, because I don't know what the going rate is right now, but I think someone mentioned that it might have been at least like a little under 200. Again, I'm not really familiar with them other than my friend's gigantic one that he brings out, and it's pretty ugly and massive. Is that something you would recommend, or should people kind of stay away from High Point?
Well, a High Point is a functional firearm. It works. It's not high quality. It's not the most reliable gun, but if you only have $100 or $150 and you need a pistol right now, you could do worse.
You could get one of those Cobras, right?
Yeah. Don't get a Cobra.
Don't ever get a Cobra, folks. Stay away from those.
But a high point pistol, they're ugly, they're heavy, they're chunky, but that also has benefits. The weight really helps reduce the recoil of a 9mm cartridge. Having a big, heavy brick in your hand, it just absorbs all that recoil energy. I think they're technically a blowback design, so there aren't a whole lot of complicated moving parts in there. So it's a very simple gun, which is what allows it to be kind of reliable despite being crap quality. It works.
It works. You can always beat someone to death with it. It's that heavy.